Asian shipyards are building more ships than ever, but getting them to Western clients in pristine condition, unscratched and ready for action, requires a very special kind of logistics vehicle to transport them across the world's oceans. Only a very few companies in the world operate ships that carry ships, as well as a number of other gigantic floating objects. This is the story of one of the heaviest lifters on the high seas today, the Hawk. As foreign companies manufacture larger and larger industry components in Asia, and China's economic boom continues, demand for heavy lift shipping capacity in Southeast Asia is at an all-time high, making the region one of the busiest nerve centers of maritime traffic and a center for shipbuilding. The more goods that are shipped, and the bigger the project cargoes are, the more ships are needed around the world. But not all ships being constructed are capable of making a transoceanic voyage, and most customers want them delivered brand new. A handful of heavy lift companies have found the solution for delivering them: ships that carry ships.
We try to plan for the worst and always hope for the best. We will always try to have a plan B and a plan C, sometimes even up our sleeve, just to be ready if something is wrong. Then we are ready. We are always prepared with some backup plan.
The most important to the vessel and to the captain to deliver the cargo in safe and good condition. So if we will see that weather condition not good, and we will wait weather improvement.
Hawk is a semi-submersible heavy lift ship designed to transport heavy loads around the world that conventional ships can't carry. Semi-submersible heavy lift ships have a long and low cargo deck between a forward pilot house and an aft machinery space. The ballast tanks can be flooded to lower the cargo deck below the water's surface, allowing oil platforms, other vessels or other floating cargo to be moved into position for loading in an operation called float on, float off. The tanks are then pumped out and the well deck rises to shoulder the load. To balance the cargo, the various tanks can be pumped unevenly. The Hawk semi-submersible is among the 10 top of its kind in the world, and the biggest in the fleet of offshore heavy transport, a Norwegian company that is one of the leaders in the sector. Originally built as an oil tanker, she was retrofitted by OHT in 2008 and 2009 in order to be the vessel we see today. The vessel weighs 25,600 tons, but when she's sailing, she has 85,000 tons, and if she's submerging, the weight of the vessel is a whopping 130,000 tons, as much as 65,000 large trucks or 800 Boeing jumbo jet planes. Vietnam is a commercial crossroads of Southeast Asia. Bordered by China and protected by the Philippines and Malaysia, it is the perfect stopping-over place for large ships loading and unloading containers and other large cargo loads. This is the port of Vung Tau. The fishing boats and fishing nets of the inhabitants share the sea with hulking cargo vessels from all over the world. In the coming days, the shadow of the Hawk will dominate the landscape. She has sailed all the way from Norway to meet with her next cargo here. Bartosz Kozinski is the loadmaster following the operation. The Polish seaman has been working on ships for 20 years, the last 5 as loadmaster. In the last 5 years as loadmaster, he has loaded some of the heaviest objects on the high seas. He averages about 1 heavy load job per month, but each operation is different, presenting its own set of risks and variables. For this operation, Hawk is transporting ships to the other side of the world. Ships that otherwise wouldn't be able to survive a transoceanic voyage. Not just vessels that are out of commission or in need of repair, but also jack-up rigs and, as in this case, brand new modular carrier vessels made for navigating rivers and inland seas, able themselves to carry up to 1,800 tons stacked high on their decks. The ships are ready for work and even have their full crews with them.
We are at the DXP yard in Vung Tau, Vietnam, where we came to inspect 3 MCV units, module carriers for our client. Each module is approximately 3,000 module carrier, 3,000 tons in weight, 123 meter long. We will be loading all 3 of them in a few days from now.
Before inspection of the 3 cargo vessels that will be loaded onto the Hawk, Bartosz heads up a meeting with all those involved in the operation. The 3 captains of the vessels being transported and their crews, who will be hosted on board the Hawk during the transport. But also present are the port authorities of Vung Tau, the logistics directors, the commanders of the tugs that will tow the ships out to the point chosen for loading. All in all, more than 100 people at sea and on shore will be assisting in the operation. Bartosz describes in detail all the phases of the operation, responding to numerous questions, as everyone wants to know the loadmaster's opinion as to how best to carry out their various tasks. The biggest question of all, however, is the forecast. The date has been fixed 2 days from today, but the weather must cooperate.
We came here to make an inspection to see if they are ready for loading, if all preparations were done in accordance with Transport Design Manual. Also to have a meeting with all parties to discuss how the all operation will look like and all the safety aspects, just to make sure that the operation is safe and smooth, that it will go all okay. Since all 3 units they will be loaded on a vessel and they will be staying alongside each other, so basically each unit will be touching each other. We need to have fendering system just to protect them from damage.
Once the meeting is over, the parties head to the vessels already anchored in the port of Vung Tau for a thorough inspection.
There is wooden fenders on the last unit, which is the one completely outside. And we had to check the exact position, that the position of these fenders is in accordance with the design, that they are exactly on the strong points of the vessel, that we will not have any damage, that the fenders will not clash with some structures on the units, that we will not have any problems with the final positioning of the cargo during the loading.
The wooden beams must be laid across 8,700 square meters of deck area. It is perhaps the most crucial aspect of transporting such heavy cargoes long distances. Bartosz and the captain of the modular carrier vessels discuss how best to position the beams based on the measurements taken during the prior inspection.
They are designed to sail in sheltered waters, in closed areas, so rivers, seas like the Caspian Sea, so not ocean conditions. Just the construction of the vessel does not allow for voyage through the ocean. Because even if they were strong enough to sustain the ocean passage and could be towed by a conventional tug, The heavy lift ship is much faster than tug. It's 2-3 times faster than the tug. So the owners of the cargo, they will get their ships in location much faster, meaning they can start making money much faster in this case. So the time, it's a big factor in here.
Wave limits are also crucial during the loading operations because there are multiple floating objects, the hawk heaving up and down, and then the vessels being loaded. The 3 brand new vessels, once loaded onto Hawk, cannot bump into one another because they could be damaged before even arriving at their destination.
We don't want to damage the ship, we don't want to damage the cargo. You know, the owners of the ships behind us, they paid for a brand new equipment and they want to have a brand new equipment delivered in a discharging location, so they want a scratch-free delivery.
The forecast continues to worry Bartosz. It is the monsoon period in Vietnam, and hot winds passing through the area can influence the weather and exacerbate unexpected thunderstorms that can be violent and create dangerous swells that put the cargo and the crew loading it at risk. The monsoon in Southeast Asia affects the climate here from May to October, with most of the intense weather systems moving from the Asian continent and then clashing with the humidity of the peninsula, leaving the coastal areas vulnerable to intense storms. The monsoons of Southeast Asia are threatening to disrupt loading operations near the port of Vung Tau as 3 newly built modular carrier vessels await transfer to Europe. The OHT Hawk is charged with carrying out a float-on, float-off loading operation during which the Hawk's deck submerges so cargo can be floated over and loaded on. Safety margins are stringent.
We have to look very carefully at the weather, so we have a very strict weather limitations. For this cargo, every cargo will have a little bit different because it will depend on its size, on its weight. In this case, our limit was just 15 knots wind, which is not that much. It was a wave that was not more than half a meter, which is also very little. And also the current, we are on a river, so also the current, which is not stronger than 1 knot.
Loadmaster Bartosz, who is leading the operations, prepares for transfer to the Hawk Semisubmersible, which must wait for loading far from the busy port of Vung Tau. He boards a small boat that will bring him 10 nautical miles out to the Hawk's position. The Hawk's crew is already busy on deck preparing the wooden beams on which the load will be balanced and then modified based on the measurements made after inspection. On the main deck of the Hawk, the captain, Pawlo Rewucki, awaits Bartosz's arrival. The captain lives every day of his work in the heavy lift sector as an opportunity brimming with memorable experiences.
For me, it was very interesting how different type of the cargo can be transported by the vessel. So the job is not only, how to say, 3 months contract. You should do something new, study, and you should grow in professionally on board the vessel all time.
The countdown continues. Less than 24 hours remain before the lifting maneuver begins, so it's time for yet another logistical meeting of the team, this time with the crew and captain of the Hawk and the assisting vessels and tugs. Will the weather hold? For the operation to be safe, there cannot be storms in the forecast, but it seems there are more clouds on the horizon.
For loading, we will first bring the cargo alongside the vessel by tugs. Then we will try to hold the cargo in position near the ship. The final positioning, we will, in this case, we use guideposts, we use paint marks. We have a theodolite, and with the theodolite we just make sure that the vessel is exactly in the center of the vessel, so designed position in this case. In other cases, for other cargoes, we might use different methods for positioning, and that might be cameras, underwater cameras, might be verified by divers, also stoppers, which is welded to the vessel. So each cargo will have a slightly different method for positioning.
Bartosz and the chief officer check on progress along the deck. The laying down of wooden beams must be precise, because the load, once the refloating has happened, will be directly resting on the deck. Bartosz heads to the center of the ship, where a theodolite device is mounted. He dials it in, making sure all the settings are correct to help him with the alignment.
And with this device we will make sure that it's actually in position that we want the vessel to be. We have few methods to guarantee that the units are in position. We use guideposts which are welded now to the deck. Some paint mark system which is painted on the units itself, plus the theodolite. And then, of course, after the vessel will deballast and the deck is dry, we will confirm again everything visually to make sure that we are within the limits that we want it to be. Typically, it's approximately 1 inch accuracy while loading the cargo and positioning over the deck.
The trip through the Arabian Sea and onto the Black Sea to the unloading position in Burgas, Bulgaria, will be long and full of uncertainties.
To submerge the ship, we start everything from basically inspection of the deck. We have to make sure that and there is no any loose items on the deck, so that everything is well secured, so that when we submerge, that nothing will be floating, there will be no garbage around the vessels.
With no break in the weather on the horizon, Bartosz makes the call with the team to delay the operation. They must wait out a storm arriving in the coming days, which is likely to make the sea too rough to operate inside the busy and shallower port area. The Hawk heads out to a safe position in deeper waters to weather out the storm and wait for a window of clear skies that will allow the operation to be green-lighted. OHT, Offshore Heavy Transport, is a Norwegian company specialized in hiring out ships to transport heavy loads such as jack-up rigs, bulk carriers, or other massive ocean vessels that must be moved from point A to point B. These amazing semi-submersible ships carry some of the heaviest objects plying the seas.
The free deck space, so it's 157 meters long. The beam is 55.5, but the beam does not restrict the size of the cargo that we can take. We took a cargo which was 100 meters wide, so we had an overhang of 25 meters to each side. We are restricted by the length of the deck in this case, and we need to have a little bit of space when we bring cargo. So in this case, the longest cargo will be approximately 2 meters shorter than the actual length of the free deck space, in this case 157 meters.
Running a massive ship like Hawk depends on extremely powerful diesel engines that must be able to propel a ship whose weight while sailing can be up to a whopping 83,000 tons. Chief Engineer Josip Majnaric does most of his work down here in the bowels of the ship.
Now we are located in engine control room. From here we can operate with main engine and auxiliary engines. We have operator panel, main switchboard where generators are connected, and we can full observe condition and running and all parameters for main engine and auxiliary engine.
The Hawk is just one of 5 offshore heavy transport ships working in the sector, where dozens more ply the seas.
We have at the present moment 5 vessels of this type. This is the biggest one that we have. This vessel can, the deadweight of this vessel is around 65,000 tons. So what we can carry, the biggest cargo that we can carry will be in the range of 50,000 tons in weight. What's more important, we can take approximately 30 tons per square meter on a deck that we are presently standing on.
The sheer enormity of these heavy load carriers is even more impressive if we compare them to objects or areas we are more familiar with.
The vessel is approximately 223 meters long, with 157 meters of free cargo deck space. That will correspond to approximately 1.5 football field lengths, which is quite impressive, actually. The weight of the vessel, empty ship, I mean, it's just a steel structure, is approximately 27,000 tons, with the transit condition of approximately plus minus 83,000 tons, which corresponds to more or less 500 Boeing jumbo jet planes, which is even more impressive. And when the ship is fully submerged, ready for loading, the weight goes up to more than 137,000 tons, which is 800 jumbo jets. So it's really, really impressive when you put it in perspective.
We have one main engine on the ship. It's a 2-stroke main engine, MAN maker. It's a slow-speed engine on maximum 85 revolutions per minute, giving total power of 13,300 kilowatts, or what is actually equivalent with 18,000 horsepower. It's quite a strong engine, but it is very reliable.
Sometimes it looks like easy running, but even the pilot not fully understand how it's difficult to stop this 220 meters. Sometimes it's not possible to stop within few minutes. You should adjust your mind and be worried about this. We can run very fast, but to stop the vessel it takes time.
But how exactly does a semi-submersible ship actually work? The ship is able to lower its deck to below water in order to float its cargo on and off using a specially designed ballast system to empty and fill the tanks up to just a few centimeters of air pockets. Key to any heavy lift operation of this magnitude is what happens in the ballast room, which is where the most delicate phase of the operation is carried out. The chief officer, Vitaly Smirnov, supervises on deck but is in control of the ballast room operations.
So we use for eject the water from the tank for ballast pump, 3,000 tons per hour capacity, and one big one with 4,000 per hour capacity. And for stripping water from the tanks, we use a GS pump, the small one, just for stripping of the water, for prevent the free surface inside of the tanks.
To submerge the vessel, the crew start filling up the dozens of ballast tanks until the main deck is almost under water. This is a very critical stage, because with water moving freely around in the tanks, the vessel loses its stability.
The ship has 81 ballast tanks, with total capacity about 140,000 metric tons. And all tanks we are using for the loading and discharging operation. This panel shows the all tanks. The ship has 3 levels of the tanks, upper, middle and lower. and the same three lines, the starboard, port and the center line. But additionally, about the 4 years ago, was installed on the shipyard sponson tanks from port side and starboard side.
This ability to sink below the water's surface in order to take any cargo on board has made the Hawk a sort of ocean-going ambulance, ready to come to the rescue of some of the largest behemoths of the high seas. On the morning of August the 8th, 2016, shocked residents of Dalmore Beach on the island of Lewis, Outer Hebrides, woke up to find an orange steel monster washed up against the rocks of their wild coast. A massive 17,000-ton oil rig had appeared out of nowhere. Photographs of the Transocean winner quickly went round the world, the spectacular barren beauty of the place contrasting with the environmental hazard the rig represented. First, the Transocean winner was refloated, then tugs towed it to a deeper, safer place in a quiet bay, where the OHT Hawk came to the rescue to take the rig away. 6 weeks after the Transocean winner rammed ashore, the Hawk sank until tugs could drag the wrecked rig over its sunken deck. Then, once it had recovered buoyancy, successfully sailed away with the massive oil platform fastened securely to the deck. A few months later, Hawk was called to her next assignment, perhaps the biggest yet, to load the Askepot, a Cat J70 jack-up rig, one of the biggest in the world, after its construction was completed in the Samsung shipyard of South Korea.
The biggest cargo this vessel carried so far, it's jack-up rigs, Gusto MSC CJ70s. They are approximately 40,000 tons, plus minus. The biggest one we took, it was actually 42,000 tons during the float-on operation, with dimensions almost 100 meter wide and 130 meter long, including the helipad, and 200 meters of legs on it, so quite impressive. And it was also the biggest cargo I have ever carried, loaded and discharged in my career.
The Askepot is a 3-leg cantilever-type jack-up rig. It had been built for Statoil to do deep drilling for production wells. These amazing super rigs can operate in water depths from 70 to 150 meters and drill wells as deep as 10,000 meters below the seabed. The jack-up legs are an amazing 200 meters tall, second tallest in the world. After it passed its height test in the impressive Samsung shipyard, Bartosz and Hawk could start working on the 30-hour loading operation. It would then be transported by Hawk from South Korea to Norway, a journey taking several weeks. How long each journey takes to transport mega objects from point A to point B on a semi-submersible ship depends on how heavy a cargo it is carrying and what kind of weather conditions these amazing ships that carry ships encounter along the way.
The speed of our vessel will depends cargo type. Different cargo, different speed, and also weather condition. But average speed will be around 12 knots. Regarding the time of cargo operation, is also vary from cargo to cargo, but actually we require it around 1 week to load and fix the cargo for sea voyage.
We have a stop work policy in place, so everybody can stop anybody, regardless of the rank. So lower ranks can stop the higher ranks. You know, the captain can be stopped by ordinary seamen, if necessary. And we prefer to stop just to make sure that we reduce the risk to minimum. Again, to be sure that the people are safe, that the cargo is safe. So Better be safe than sorry.
Bartosz is careful to put safety first. Safety of the crew, then safety of the cargo, and finally time pressures, which are important but not at the expense of safety. Handling such massive objects involves a lot of risk that must be managed.
We moving big objects, we heavy objects. We use a lot of machinery. We use a lot of equipment in a process to do that. So of course it is risky. But again, we try to plan everything. We try to have toolbox talks with all parties involved. We try to explain what we want to do, how we want to do it. We don't try to rush things. So we prefer to stop the operation.
Heavy lift loading can take from 3 days to over a week, depending on how complicated the operation is. This time, Hawk is operating in a shallow and congested Vietnamese port, where tiny fishing boats and nets are present alongside massive ocean-going vessels. There is a difficult river current here, as well as wind and swells from the monsoon season.
As soon as we have required depths, submerging depths, and where weather permitted, we can start loading operation. Loading operation will be performed with tach assistance. The cargo will bring alongside with tach assistance. After this, when the cargo near our vessel, we will take care about the cargo. We use our cargo lines and bring the cargo to exact proper position as per manual and drawing.
The operation has been delayed for several days due to heavy monsoon rains. But finally, a break in the weather is on the horizon. Loadmaster Bartosz decides to go forward with the operation the next day. The night before, he holds a planning meeting to go over every last detail of how the loading will proceed. He will be the first man up, giving orders on the bridge at 4 a.m., with crew on standby soon after and ready for 6 straight hours of work from 6 a.m. on. Each man must have life jackets, water and rain gear available for the duration of the operation.
We start tomorrow morning. The first unit will be alongside 6 o'clock in the morning. I think stand by everybody 5:30.
Each crew member is assigned one of 8 ropes that must be fastened just right to slowly maneuver the cargo ships into place. The ropes must be knotted and looped and fastened correctly so that just the proper amount of slack is present at all times.
For Valentin and for Robert, you are our brakes, yeah? So do not slack too much. So you are slacking only little by little. Probably we will tell you half a meter or 20 centimeters, no more.
Then the stoppers will have to be put into position, and they are allowed to barely kiss the delicate river vessels. Bartosz warns, gentle touch. The ships will be brought out one by one every hour. There is no room for error. Any questions, he asks?
There are no stupid questions. Every question is good.
He reminds the crew of radio operations policy.
Please, when he will ask you or I will ask you something on the radio, repeat, okay? On the radio. So we know that we understand each other. That we don't have any problem. If you don't understand, just say, please repeat, and then we repeat. That's no problem. If necessary to repeat 3 times, we repeat 3 times. So no worries here. Yeah? See you tomorrow then. Have a good rest tonight.
Satisfied they have gone over everything, he bids the crew good night. Tomorrow will be a full day, and everyone must be well rested for the operation to start smoothly. Dawn breaks over the port of Vung Tau. It's a new day, and the weather permitted the Hawk to move into position inside the port during the night in order to submerge in preparation for loading. The morning sun reflects off the water where the entire length of the Hawk's deck is completely submerged. The tugs are in position, the same place as 2 days ago, and ready to start towing their ships to the loading zone. There may seem to be no hazards, but there are many hidden dangers that the crew must be on the lookout for, now that the massive Hawk is operating inside the busy, shallower port.
Yeah, it's not, how to say, easy place. We have plenty fishing stakes around, small buoys, small vessels. Now southwest monsoon start, so heavy rain can start within few minutes, and it's heavy predicted situation. So the vessel should be ready in all respects, engine should be ready all time, and the crew should be ready all time. It's not easy place and quite close location. But we have no other possibility to load this cargo. This is only one place where we will manage to load.
The first vessel is being towed by 3 tugboats, but port traffic delays its arrival. It is not easy to navigate this labyrinth of large cargo ships and tiny fishing boats. Bartosz and the chief engineer reach the first ship to follow the operation directly on board, one on the stern and one on the bow, directing the crew that remained on board Hawk, as well as the small supply boat that will bring the many ropes used to pull the vessels into position and then ratchet them tightly onto the deck. The first line is attached to the Hawk, but immediately the loadmaster is presented with a problem. Rough seas begin to complicate the situation. The job gets delayed from the outset, and the swells are not making it easy to use the system that alternates the ropes between bow and stern, using a total of 8 different lines to best position the first vessel. The most important because it is the vessel used to align all the rest of the load. But the sea shows no intention of calming down, and the crew is encountering double the difficulty in every operation they undertake. Bartosz doesn't hold back and is on the front line of every action. The method in which all the ropes are anchored to the cargo via the Hawk's guideposts assures not only correct alignment, but above all the stability of the load during the long, dangerous voyage it must make to Bulgaria. On the Hawk, the officers are staying in contact with Bartosz as they play tug-of-war with the ropes in order to allow the proper tensions and slack. Everything is proceeding based on very small margins of balance that the loadmaster must direct thanks to the precise measurements made in the days prior and, of course, to his many years of experience. Once the first vessel is in position, finally the crew can begin to load the second ship.
During loading we had approximately 13 knots of winds, between 12 and 13, so it was already quite close to the limit. On top of this, the wind was blowing against the river that was also building up a little bit the wave. So the wave was again on the limit, almost. And then they missed the slack tide by 2 hours, and we were loading on almost maximum allowed current in this case. So strong current, strong wind, wave, and the boat is quite small, so they were really struggling to do it. And again, you know, I prefer to do it slower in this case to make sure that the guys on the boat are safe.
This time, the rubber service dinghy leaves from the bow, and the chief engineer is in command of the operation to bring the cable over to the vessel. Now that the seas have calmed, the work is going more smoothly. The winches are working at maximum power to give enough rope to bring the second vessel to the center of Hawk. Every unit waits its turn to let go of the rope and then reattach it. Under the hot midday sun of the Tropic of Cancer, the second ship is also finally aligned and connected with lines to the first ship. It appears that the operation, up until this point, is going well. Now the theodolite must confirm perfect alignment with the marker painted down the center of the ship. The heat is unbearable. The crew decides to take a break. After the break, the third vessel finally arrives. 2 vessels have already been connected. Now the crew must use first 2 ropes with precision to bring the third vessel into position as well. Fatigue is starting to set in, but there is no time for distraction, as the sea is once again being whipped up by the wind. With thousands of tons of water in its ballast tanks and 2 of the 3 ships loaded, every precaution must be taken to complete the operation safely and successfully. A single error made now could cause an unthinkable accident inside the congested port of Vung Tau. Not just cargo, but lives are at stake. Gradually, the third vessel is also brought into position. From the bow, the crew returns to the stern of the ship via a long, dark tunnel that crosses the deck. Once all 3 ships are fastened down tight, it is time for Hawk to start the refloating. The work is complete and on time. Now the crew of the 3 vessels, after having stayed on the Hawk during the deballasting to refloat the ship back to normal levels, may return to their own rooms on the ships being transported. One more check is made to make sure the 3 vessels are properly bound and anchored onto the Hawk before the crew prepares to leave port and go 10 miles out to deeper waters where the final sea fastening will take place. Meanwhile, the ship's captain is meticulously preparing their planned route.
The cargo will be discharged in Burgas, Bulgaria. We will have few interesting places where the vessel passing. At first we are crossing Singapore Straits with heavy traffic. Next critical point will be Red Sea with Suez Channel, and after this Dardanelles Strait and Bosphorus Strait. So it's quite interesting voyage for navigation and for our officer and engineer.
The OHT Hawk takes to the South China Sea to face the long and arduous voyage for one of the largest ever ships that carry ships. Nearly a month later, the Hawk sails into port at Burgas, Bulgaria, to unload and deliver her precious cargo. The fully loaded OHT Hawk rarely goes unnoticed. Each float-on and float-off operation is an impressive feat of marine engineering and heavy lift transport. Another month at sea, another mission accomplished by Bartosz and the crew of the ship that carries ships.